Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. Today, we're continuing our series on the Tome of Heroes, the third-party expansion to D&D 5e. The races and subclasses and spells within were all added by the folks over at Kobold Press as a way to grow the base game. And today we're talking about two different sub-races that we find for one of the most famous fantasy races, the Elves. Elves have some of the most sub-races in all of D&D. You've got your High Elves, your Wood Elves, and your Drow in the Player's Handbook. You've also got lots of sub-races of the Half-Elf. Then you've got Eladrin, and the Shadar Kai, the Astral Elves. There's so many varieties. And the Tome of Heroes continues this tradition, taking the base elf and adding two more sub-races to it. We'll get into the details of these sub-races in just a moment, but before we do, I'd like to let you know, Relax Fantasy Review has memberships. For just $1 a month, you can support me here on YouTube and get a couple benefits. First, you get a little badge next to your name in the comments, letting folks know that you're a supporter, but also you get early access to my videos. I upload videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I upload them a day early for members only. If that interests you, you can click the join button. It's just below the video down there next to the subscribe button. And I'd love to see you in the comments with your member badges. And if it doesn't interest you, that's totally fine. Just watching the video, liking, subscribing, all that good stuff is a great way to support me. So thank you for watching my content here on YouTube. So the first sub-race we're going to talk about is the Dunewalker elf. These are basically desert elves that lived among the sands and such. They get a lot of the standard elven abilities, +2 to dexterity, medium size, 30-foot walking speed, dark vision, proficiency in perception, Fey ancestry, the standard trance sleep, all the good stuff. They also get a +1 to their wisdom. As one of the more common spellcasting abilities, wisdom is the one that falls like in the middle. A +1 to it is decent. I say that's a 6 out of 10. They also have the Desert Dweller trait. This gives them proficiency in the survival skill, so that's a second skill proficiency they get to learn, which is great. I mean, throw perception and survival together and you've really got yourself a wilderness expert. They also are immune to heat, and by that I don't mean fire damage, I mean if they're in the desert or if they're in dry locations or places where there's naturally occurring like heat biomes. They don't need to do any of the additional survival things that most creatures do. Put these together, and I say that's an 8 out of 10. Not bad. They also have a power called Desert Mirage. This allows them, once per short rest, to create a mirage, an illusion of some sort, which bends the light and such, looking like a wavy desert image. This can be used for the whole party. It can cover your proficiency bonus number of creatures. And it lightly obscures you, and it gives you the ability to hide within this light obscurement for 1 minute. This is a nice ability. It only takes a bonus action. And having the ability to create this obscurement, it feels kind of like Fog Cloud Light, but it doesn't take concentration. It only costs a bonus action. You do it once per short rest. I think it's fine. I think it's a cool power, nice battlefield control sort of, defensively. So yeah, I say 8 out of 10 for that. Then you've got Dunewalker Elf Weapon Training. Most elves have some level of weapon training built into them, and these guys are no different. They get the longbow and short bow as part of their weapons, as well as the scimitar and the spear, leaning into sort of more classic desert warrior lore. These are good weapons. You've got yourself ranged weapons, dex-based weapons. The spear can be a strength-based weapon. There's enough here that any build could use them. Obviously, if you're already a fighter or a ranger, you don't need these, but for spellcasters and lighter weapon users, this is a nice buff. I say 8 out of 10 once again. And then finally, you get the Sand Spirit trait. And this simply says that if you have to move through sand or desert terrain that would normally count as difficult terrain, I suppose that quicksand, soft sand, or any sort of like rocky precipice that would be in the desert, you're just better at crossing it. This is a very, very niche thing. Difficult terrain is not typically an issue in your average D&D game, but if you happen to be in the desert and you happen to run into difficult terrain, it won't bother you. So 6 out of 10. The Dunewalker elf, not a bad little addition to the elf shelf of the elf on a shelf, the list of elf subraces. The other one that the Tome of Heroes has is the Frostfell elf, taking the exact opposite dynamic and going for the Arctic elf, the ones that would live in the snow and the ice. They get the same elven things that I mentioned before, the standard elf stuff, and then they get a +1 to their constitution. Everyone loves constitution, more health, more concentration, more durability. A +1 I give a 7 out of 10. Then they get the Cold Dweller feature. This gives them just a flat resistance to cold damage, which is great. Cold damage is a relatively common one that you find, and resistance to it is a solid feature. I say that's 9 out of 10. Then they get the standard elf weapon training: longsword, short sword, longbow, short bow. So good weapons, like I said before. For martial classes, this won't do a whole lot, but for the spellcasters and the more skill-based classes, this could be awesome. There's dexterity, there's range, there's strength. It's all here, so 8 out of 10 again. Then they have a power called Ice Crafting. This can be done once per short rest, where they take water or snow or ice and take a minute to magically craft out of it an item. The item has to weigh less than 10 pounds, but other than that, it can be any item, and it is functional, meaning you can create basic weapons, basic adventuring gear, anything really, as long as it weighs less than 10 pounds, which is a good amount of items. You can create weapons out of this, in theory. The item functions normally for up to 24 hours if you're in a cold environment. Immune to cold damage, vulnerable to fire damage, and if you go out of freezing cold environments, the item will melt in a minute. But even then, you could take like a thing of water, even if you were in a hot environment, and magically craft yourself a dagger or something, and then fight with it for up to a minute, which is kind of cool. There isn't a gold piece limit on the item you can craft, although you probably couldn't sell it. And yeah, I think this is just a really good utility ability, giving you a lot of freedom when it comes to making your own adventuring gear in a pinch. And if you're in an Arctic environment, you can just grab the snow and whip this up. I'd say 9 out of 10 for this. Very, very good. And then they get the snow step power, just like the Dunewalkers. They can go through snow and ice-based terrains that would normally be difficult terrain that aren't anymore. Once again, I can see this if you're in an Arctic environment, moving through snow drifts or across slippery surfaces without any problems. Again, difficult terrain doesn't come up a whole lot, and when it does, there's a lot of ways to get around it. But if you happen to be in an Arctic setting and run into this problem, you'll like this feature, otherwise it doesn't do anything. So 6 out of 10 once again. Overall, both of these sub-races of elves provide a unique perspective that we haven't seen from the main D&D sub-races. Yeah, sure, we've seen seasonal elves, so you could be an Eladrin that's either winter or summer, but that doesn't give you the same powers as these. That's its own thing. And yeah, there's just some good features here, mixed with the main elf racial features from the player's handbook of 5e. I give these both 9 out of 10. I think they're solid, I think they're strong, and I think that anyone who wants to play with them in an appropriately themed campaign would have a great time. Talk to your DM if that interests you. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below. Have a look for the join button down there, as well as a link that I'll leave in the description for the Tome of Heroes, published by Kobold Press, a wonderful addition to any D&D game, and I highly recommend you check it out for yourself. Have a good one, my friends.